What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Black and Diagnosed. I'm your host, Gerron Scott. I just want to welcome you into the garden. The word is heavy, and we are constantly out here performing, trying to prove we got it all together. But right now, you can drop the act, take off the mask. If you're navigating mental health, holding it down for someone who is, or just out here trying to find your footing, you belong in this room. Let's find the words, name what hurts, and get our rhythm back. Pull up a seat, and let's talk. Welcome back to Black and Diagnosed. It's your host, Gerron Scott. I'm here with Sydney. Allow her to introduce herself.
Hey, everybody. My name is Dr. Sydney Nelloms. I am an assistant professor at Southern Connecticut State University. I'm an assistant professor of sociology, but focusing in criminology.
So how did you get interested in criminology?
You know what? It's so funny. I originally wanted to be a lawyer, and you do all the lawyer things, take all the classes, take the LSAT. And by that time, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And took the LSAT. I wasn't getting into anybody's school with those scores, so I would have had to take it again. By that time, I was like, I don't want to do this, but I still love crim. I still love the theories of why people commit crime. I'm still interested in the processes that and the structural, systemic, and institutional inequalities that marginalize people who are already marginalized. So I really was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this? If I'm not going to be a lawyer, how am I going to incorporate this into my life? And basically, my professors were like, you should think about teaching. You're really literate. You explain concepts really well in class. You should think about going into teaching. And I said, okay, well, what do I have to do that? They said, get your bachelor's, get your master's, and get a PhD. And I said, okay. And that's literally how I ended up doing that. So teaching crim is a passion because I knew I didn't want to do law, but going into that field, I knew I still wanted it in some way.
Okay, nice. So what is your topic of interest, your research area?
So my big umbrella obviously is criminology, and then my little umbrella underneath that is victimology, so studying victims in the criminal justice system. And then my bread and butter, my life's work is queer criminology. So I study queer people as victims, offenders, and practitioners in the criminal justice system. And I really think at this point that the research is very timely because we're seeing so many laws that are vilifying queer people, trans people. So this has been my research interest for 10 years, but it just is so crazy how relevant it is now because of like all the stuff that's happening in our society. So yeah, that's my passion for sure.
Let's unpack that a little more. Tell me more about it.
Well, personally, growing up as a queer Black woman in the South, there were experiences that I had that I knew pretty much people who live anywhere else probably didn't have those same experiences, like queer people growing up in the Northeast, in the Midwest, in the West. I knew that there was a lot of contrast between those experiences, and a lot of it had to do with religion. I grew up Southern Baptist. My mom, Southern Baptist, my dad was Muslim. So, you know, in both of those cultures, it's an absolute hell no. So when we're talking about queerness, same-sex relationships, homosexuality. So growing up in that environment and kind of having that connection with both of those religions and it being unacceptable in both religions, especially living in the South with the Bible Belt, you know, of course, it really got me to thinking about why people are victimized, why people are vilified who are queer, specifically who are Black and queer. Because there are things that I was seeing in the Black and queer communities that I wasn't seeing in other queer communities, specifically white queer communities. Like white kids were getting coming out parties and cakes and, you know, all that stuff. And that's not something that is a reality for Black queer youth. A lot of times they're being neglected, they're being abused, they're put out of the home, they're forced into conversion camps, conversion therapy. And that wasn't particularly my story, but just understanding that there was a stark contrast between these intersectional identities of queerness, of race and ethnicity, even socioeconomic status. I really started to ask why. Why is it like this? And so that's what really led my research. When I started thinking about research I wanted to conduct, there's so many faculty that were telling me, you can't write about things that you're passionate about because you get blinded. And that didn't really make sense to me, because why would I not write about something or research something that I'm passionate about? I want to make a difference. And this is my way to do that, by pulling on my own personal experiences, delving into the research, and really just being that form of representation that I feel like a lot of people need. They need to see someone who looks like them, that is doing the research for the community and who is also a part of the community as well. I think that's really important.
I love that. And I push back against anybody who says you can't research topics you're passionate about, that you can't identify with, because that's the whole purpose of research. That's why there's not a lot of research on Black people in general.
Oh my God.
Right? Because they're like, you can't research topics that you're interested in. We got to keep researching white people. But all these white people researching white people, right?
Right.
Well, that's neither here nor there. All these white people, you can't research topics that you care about, but we white people going to keep researching white people. But it's funny.
And you know what? That is funny. And I think people also don't realize that white people research Black people a lot. Like, there are so many white researchers who are race and crime scholars. It's actually quite interesting. If you look at a lot of the early research before we started having the Kimberly Crenshaws and, the Michelle Alexanders who wrote the New Jim Crow, like, we are seeing so many of these white people who are doing research on Black communities and other communities of color. And it just, some of them are really great at what they do and they're very sensitive to the material that they put out, but some of them are not, because obviously those aren't their lived experiences. And so it's really difficult sometimes to write about things that you haven't really experienced yourself, or you at least, you don't have any particular insight on. And people do it all the time. Like, I just find that very interesting.
Yeah, and education is usually from a deficit lens when white people are writing about Black people. It's usually like, oh, Black children are bad because this bad thing happened to them.
Yes.
Right? This is why they're bad.
Yeah.
It's never why this is a strength that they have.
Yeah.
And, my research focuses on the intersection of Blackness and disability.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that your intersection book focuses on the intersection of Blackness and queerness. I think we need more focus on those intersections of Blackness, and typically it's just being Black. Typically is Black and males, the identity that's studied. So I love that the more intersectional identities are being studied. What is your favorite 90s show?
My favorite 90s show? Was Fresh Prince in the 90s?
Yes.
Okay. I forget sometimes because, I barely made the 90s. So, now I'm 96.
Oh.
Yes. That's why I ask. A lot of the stuff I was watching was, it had been on for a while. It was syndicated. So been on for a while. So yes, Fresh Prince for sure. I felt that a little too strongly.
That was a very strong It was a very surprising
Yeah, I just turned 30. Like,
I was about to say, you just this is your 30th year.
Yes. I just walked into it this year. It has been something.
30 is amazing. There's nothing like turning 30. Like, life changes. It is a fresh perspective. 30s are amazing. This is the best decade of my life so far.
Oh, I believe it. I hear that from so many different people. And I've heard that your 30s are your 20s with more money and less mistakes. And I'm here for that. I am. Because I need more of the money and less of the mistakes. I'm here for it.
I'm not going to say less of the mistakes, but more of the money is for real. More of the money is for real.
That makes me a little nervous. That makes me nervous.
So you talked about being gay in the South. How was that growing up? You said your dad was a Muslim. Yeah. Your mom was Southern Baptist. I wish you probably couldn't see my expression well when you said that, but I was just like, oh shit. I was like, oh shit. Like that's like,
Insane, right?
Insane. Yeah. So how was that?
You know what? Um, it's so funny. It's like you can laugh about these things now or like ponder on them now. Um, but I always knew I was queer. Always. Like I from a very, very early age, I remember having a ridiculous crush on I think she was my kindergarten teacher. Like, obviously, that's not something, hey, Miss Patterson. Uh, obviously, that's not something that, you're thinking about as a kid, but when you get older and you realize that's what that was, it just makes me laugh because people always say that kids don't know anything or they're not aware of things like that. And sometimes, okay, but sometimes no. So going into school and I, have older siblings and my older brother was into girls, of course. Everybody knew. My older sister was into guys. Everybody knew. She had the same boyfriend for a really long time. And so it's like there was no instance of same-sex relationships that I was seeing around me. And that's how I knew I really, really was actually interested in the same sex because I didn't see it anywhere. I didn't get it from anywhere. They weren't on TV like that. Only people we had that were same sex on TV was Ellen. And she's white. So, and then again, I didn't even really see her growing up. I more so saw like Wanda Sykes. But for a while, it wasn't something that was really talked about. So knowing that from a very early age and not really knowing what to do with it was challenging. Um, and then, of course, you have the, boyfriends, and we call them beards in the queer community because it's like we know that we're really not into you, but we can't just come out and say that we're gay. So, we're going to deal with you, but just know I'm here for your sister. Or, I'm here for your cousin, or, I'm trying to work this out in another way. But it really honestly didn't come to fruition until middle school. And sixth grade, seventh grade, it was like a switch clicked. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. This is why none of that over there makes sense to me. It never did. It just always felt like a performance. And getting into my first relationship with a girl, it just was like, oh my God, this makes sense. This is what people talk about when they're saying they have a crush. This is what people talk about when they're saying that they like somebody, that they're interested in somebody, that they want to go to sleep talking on the phone to this person all night, you know? And I was outed. So it really, obviously that's never a great experience. Everybody should have the opportunity to come out on their own time. But the reality is that's not the case for a lot of Black queer youth. So it just understanding how that happened and then also translating it into the future experiences, like it was just a lot of crazy stuff that happened. Like, I probably should write the book one day because people are going to be like, this did not happen to you. This was not your life. But it literally just kind of catapulted me into this, why do people think like this? Why do people treat queer people differently? Why are people homophobic? What is homophobia? Is there internalized homophobia? There were so many questions that I was asking myself and asking other people, asking of other people in my brain. And it was just so relevant then. And it's like, it's so funny because you see so much queerness everywhere, especially with the youth. Like, these kids are able to take their girlfriends to prom, their boyfriends to prom, all this kind of stuff. And the parents are like 10 toes down. And I'm just like, there is no freaking way. It's just back then, it wasn't that. And it really honestly, just thinking about that, it's like my generation, we were gay when it wasn't cool. So now to see kind of like the shift and the transition of the public opinion of, so many different things. I mean, all this Pride Month stuff, like people used to have to sneak and wear rainbows. It's like I feel it's so weird saying like back in my day. But no, really, like that wasn't something that was outwardly visible. It wasn't okay. And so to see that, it really warms my heart. And, to see the generation coming after me, that they have the opportunity to express themselves and be themselves, it means everything. I'm not that person that's like, I didn't get to have that, so I'm angry that they had it. No, like I really am happy for them, because everybody deserves their own piece of happiness. And being a kid, I wasn't the only girl. I had a sister, obviously, but being the youngest girl at that point, um, I was kind of like everybody's baby. My mom, my dad, my siblings, and they always have a vision for who it is that they want you to be, what it is that they want you to do. And when you don't subscribe to that, when you don't take that on, a lot of times that becomes inherently problematic. And so there was a whole lot of times where, I had to lie about who I was with, because I can't tell you I'm with my girlfriend. That's where the beards come in. You're seeing it on the sports teams, basketball, softball, track, but it's things that sometimes parents turn a blind eye to because they don't really want to believe it. They're kind of in denial. And I do feel like my mom was in denial for a while, because I just feel like my mom knows everything. So I'm like, this is the one thing that you're telling me you didn't know. Like, come on, right? And then my dad, he just was like a typical dad. I felt like in the beginning, he didn't really see it as too much of a problem, because he probably thought it was a phase. But then when he realized that it wasn't, then it was with the religion, with Islam and the Quran, and this is what is right. And I'm like, okay, literally, be so for real. You're trying to talk to me about this, and y'all believe when you die, you're going to go meet Muhammad and there's going to be 100,000 virgins or whatever it says in the Quran. And I'm like, come on, be so for real. Like, and no disrespect, obviously, to Islam, because that was a huge part of my life growing up as well. My grandmother was buried Muslim. My great grandmother was buried Muslim. So, but it's just a huge contradiction to me. Even with Christianity, right? It's like, you're able to forgive the adulterer. You're able to forgive the pedophile, right? You're able to forgive the thief, the murderer, all these people. But gay? We can't. That's where we draw the line. So that context was very interesting in itself. Kind of being in the midst of both of those religions and having them be kind of like an equal part of my life, even though I pretty much was a Christian my entire life, still am. It just, being in the middle of that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is a lot.
I know that was probably a lot. You're like, oh.
No, in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. I just think back of people's experiences, and I reflect on my experiences as an heterosexual, where it was just like, oh, you have a girlfriend, good job. And as a guy, it's just like, oh, you want to go pick her up? Sure, go ahead and go do that, right? You want to go have sex with someone?
Yeah,
it's fine.
Here's condoms. Like, we were gonna have
right
and talk to you about condoms. Yeah,
all these things that are normalized in society for heterosexual, for straight people. Whereas I have my gay friends, they're just like, we never got the birds and the bees talk. We got like scolded. We got scolded for being who we are. And it's just like, why is that? And society is just so negative. And it's just like, oh, you're gay, so you're bad, you're wrong. And it's just like, you forgive the pedophile before anything else, and you look at a gay person, you're just like, you're evil.
You're horrible. You are the worst of the worst. You are scum. That is what people think. It's insane.
And that shit just pisses me off, because I'm just like, well, like we've worked together on plenty of this stuff before, so you already know my thoughts on this. But
absolutely,
I hate it. I hate homophobic people, because
you are like the staunchest ally on the planet. To be a Black man and be in such a unique position to like just see all of this stuff, you were like, I'm not for that. I'm gonna let you know right now, if you bring that shit around me, I'm not having it.
No, I just feel like homophobia in 2026 is, you got to be gay. You have to be in the closet to be homophobic in 2026.
It is. It's a lot of it is internalized homophobia. Like, for real. It is.
Because I'm just like, it, especially at our age, like you have to know who you are. You have to be comfortable in your own skin at this point. So let me. So how does being gay, being forced to be outed, how did that play a role in your mental health?
You know, it was hard. It was hard. And I want to be clear. I wasn't outed in the traditional way where somebody like told on me. It was a situation where there were messages in my phone and, my mom saw them. And then it was, oh my gosh, it was this big, huge thing. Um, but, it just having your mom tell you that, you're in the shower and you're crying. And this is like a distinct memory that I have. You're in the shower and you're crying because you are being moved to another school because somebody told your parents that you were walking around holding hands in the hallway with your girlfriend after school on your way to practice. And you have to go to another school now. Like, you can't even go to the same, it's the school that's encouraging all of this behavior. So finding out that I have to go to a different school, I'm in the shower, on the floor, crying. And it's, well, you're going to have to get up off the floor or I'm going to call the ambulance and they're going to come and put you in a straitjacket. Just straight like that. So I think that, and that's not something I talk about really, but, it's just having something like that being said to you when you're a kid. I was 16, I think, 15, 16, and knowing that nobody cared. That is something that I probably will never forget for the rest of my life. And even though things are a lot different now, my family has come around, love them dearly. They've apologized, they've atoned for their mistakes. That's something that will stay with me forever because the feeling of nobody cares how you feel. Nobody cares about you. It doesn't matter that you're a kid. Their perceptions of you, that's what they think that you should live up to, and that's it. And I think a lot of times when we grow up, we hide from the ugly reality of a lot of these things because people change and they get better and they act differently and they support you. But these things stay in your mental potentially forever, even with all the therapy and the drugs and the, all of that. It's just, you never forget things like that. And it really does a number on your mental health because it's like, I'm a kid. And if my parents, the people who brought me into this world, are saying something like this to me, then who is going to care about me? Who is going to protect me? There were so many situations where I should have been protected and I wasn't. And so I think definitely my mental health was negative from a very young age. I was depressed before depression was a thing. I was anxious before anxiety was a thing, I feel, because, it's like, okay, I know this feeling, but I can't really put a name to it. And, at that point, they're telling you, oh, depression looks like this, anxiety looks like this. But if it doesn't look like that, then, of course, people say you don't have it, right? Especially as being a young person, I think that's unique as well.
Yeah, I think depression, anxiety definitely looks different in Black women compared to other groups. And again, we talked about it earlier. Black women in particular aren't enough studied. They aren't studied enough. Their lived experience aren't research. So they base it off what white people present as depression and anxiety. And oftentimes that can be different across cultures. So how did you get your diagnosis?
I got my diagnosis, I want to say, when I was in high school. And I remember going to this set of therapists, and One of them I really loved. She was like really in tune with me. I felt like I could communicate with her and tell her the real. And then one of them, I felt like maybe she was an op because I felt like she was going to report back to my parents. So I didn't really tell her as much as I probably should have, or tell her everything because I didn't really trust her. Um, but getting that official diagnosis, like, okay, depression, you're depressed. Back then, depression was you're laying in the bed, you can't get out of bed, you're crying all the time. Um, you don't want to go out, you don't want to do any activities that you really normally love to do. And of course, those things are part of depression, nowadays in 2026. But I think we have pigeonholed ourselves as people to believe that depression and anxiety look a certain way and that they look a certain way for everybody, that it's the same. And it's not, right? With Black women in particular, a lot of our depression looks like things that most people wouldn't even imagine, right? It looks like throwing ourselves into our workload because we don't feel like we have anything else that makes us valuable. Depression for a lot of times, for Black women, a lot of times looks like taking on things that don't really belong to you, or taking on things that you might not normally take on because you can't face whatever it is that's going on in your own life. So you become a problem solver and, a major communicator and people pleaser for other people because you aren't really able to, or you don't want to deal with the things that are going on in your own life. Um, for Black women, I feel like it looks like motivation. It looks like ambition. It looks like, uh, a lot of things that probably would be positive for another group. But for us, a lot of times our mental health is tied to our self-worth. And, Black men specifically, especially Black men, but Black men and Black women, I think that we have unique outlooks on what depression and anxiety look like. Um, and that is something that I wish I would have known when I was younger, because then I probably would have been able to put a name to it faster. The additional things that I was experiencing besides what my therapists were seeing in their textbooks and what they were telling me, I think that would have helped a lot. And that's why I'm such an advocate for mental health, because it looks different. It looks different for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Let's add in the layer of queerness on top of that,
Oh, yes.
right? So you're a Black woman, right, who's dealing with depression. Now you're a queer woman who's trying to find space to explore the identity.
Mhm.
How does that and anxiety play a role?
Just really honestly feeling like you might not be safe. Um, you know, making sure that you're not putting yourself in a position to um be harmed. And I think really just paying attention to things a little bit more closely, probably more so than other people. I mean, being a woman, of course, there is already a layer of, nervousness and anxiety that comes with going out. Your moms tell you all the time, don't put your drink down. If you don't have money to get a drink, I'll send you money so you can get another one. Because you put that drink down, there's a chance there might be something in it when you pick it back up. Right? Don't go out late by yourself. Try not to dress a certain way, which all of these things are victim blaming and victim shaming, which is wrong. But as a culture, being a woman, a lot of these things were taught from a very early age. Um, but then looking at it from a role of Blackness, there's the concept of sundown towns. There's the concept of, you know, we know that there's a lot of racist activity going on over here, so you probably shouldn't go to school here, or you probably shouldn't buy a house here. And, there's a lot of information that's out there on stuff like that. But when it comes to queerness, a lot of times it's not as much information, or the information is scattered because people are afraid. People are afraid to, speak up when things happen to them. People are afraid to be in certain spaces. And it really just depends on your environment. A lot of it has to do with your environment. Um, and also how you handle conflict, how you handle things. But I think that for the most part, just really thinking about how queerness affects so many things on top of being a woman, on top of being Black. It's the overlapping of the intersectional identities that really have a huge effect in not only mental health, but just evaluating safety. Um, because not only might I not be safe as a woman, I might not be safe as a Black woman. I probably am not going to be safe as a queer Black woman. And so just having to go through all of those layers of what could potentially happen, that kind of stuff makes you paranoid. It makes you afraid, and you kind of have to fight against that.
So it sounds like you just have to survive and a lot of survival instincts. That is a lot to deal with on a day-to-day basis, thinking, how are you going to make it through each day? Thinking about, is it safe to go to this place? Is this safe to go to this bar? Is it safe to be who I am? And that's really a shame, to be honest, right? If people can't explore who they really want to be and who they really are,
Yeah.
they can't explore that in life, if they can only explore that in certain places. So let's talk about those places and those safe spaces, what we like to call safe spaces. Growing up, how have you found those safe spaces where you can be yourself without that depression or anxiety coming in?
It was college. It was college for me because even in high school, there were queer girls on the softball team, queer girls on the basketball team, but it's like everybody knew. And it's like people are like, oh, you got to stay away from them because they're gay. Or, there was just this whole like negative connotation surrounding these groups that probably would have been supportive if there wasn't that, right? But college really honestly opened that up for me. Being able to be queer and not be afraid, having friends and, you know, people that were in my corner that really honestly, genuinely cared for me and didn't care that I was gay. Like, and also seeing other people that were out and comfortable and being gay, I think was just a complete game changer for me because I'm like, this is why I wanted to get away. This is why I wanted to be able to be on my own and, really just be comfortable. I just wanted to be myself. And obviously that wasn't my intention going into college, right? It's not like, okay, well, I'm in college. I get to be gay openly now. But it was more so I get to just be safe. I get to be comfortable. I get to see other people who identify like me. I get to see other people who look like me. And I felt okay. I felt safe. So I think college really was that game changer for me where I was like, okay, this is like nobody's gonna, you know, pop out and snap a picture of me and send it to my parents or, nobody's going to follow me home and, it's gonna be an issue. So it really changed my life. It did.
Yeah, it sort of sounds like that depression, anxiety was able to ease up a little bit. So that's great. That is great news. That is great to hear. So knowing that you're a professor, you're a lot of different things. Do you ever feel the need to feel perfect? And with that said, do you feel like that need to feel perfect feeds into your anxiety?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like as a Black woman in general, we are often held to a standard that is damn near impossible because we are the cornerstone of everything. And it's just like, okay, a lot of the decisions that we make, sometimes we can't even make them because we worried about the next Black woman or we worried about, literally everything else. We're not even really thinking about us. We're thinking about how our decisions could impact the world or impact, other people who are trying to come, behind us on the same path. I mean, it could literally be anything. But I think we're so focused all the time on other people and on raising the bar and, in countless fields and breaking the glass ceiling and all those expressions that we love to talk about. Black women being the first, Black women being this and that. But I mean, and that stuff is great. It is, right? Like I'm probably it's probably 2%, 2 or 3% of Black women who have PhDs in my field. And that's a beautiful thing because representation is important. But at the same time, it's a lot of pressure on that 2% or that 3% because everybody's looking at us like we have to have all the answers. And, really just emphasizing that, oh my gosh, you're so smart, you're so capable. All these things that we've been taught are great things, and they are in a way, but they really contribute a lot to our anxiety, our depression, our PTSD, all of these things that we struggle with a lot of times silently. And a lot of times without medication or without assistance in any way because we feel like we don't deserve it, or we feel like it's going to alter us in some way that we won't be able to come back from, or we'll be stigmatized, or literally so many other things and so many other reasons why we have issues asking for help or thinking about coping strategies or things of that nature. So I think definitely perfectionism has an impact, huge impact on the mental health of Black women. And queer women especially, because there's so many stereotypes that surround Black women, women and queer Black women. A lot of times we're just trying not to fall into them and, really just doing our best to, like we said earlier, survive. And a lot of times survival is baked into perfectionism. Because if we are perfect or damn near as close as we can get to perfect, then not only are we surviving, but we're thriving. And we are enamored with the idea of thriving. And a lot of times at any cost, at the cost of our mental health, at the cost of our physical health, our financial health, sometimes our spiritual health. And so all of those things can produce anxiety, depression, other mental illnesses. And so it really could go both ways. It could produce those things, and it could, those things could cause it as well. Could cause, the extra curricular activities that we have to be a part of, the clubs that we have to be the chairperson of, be the president of, just being the best at everything. I think definitely has to do with anxiety and depression for sure.
Yeah, growing up, I loved being called smart. I was like, yeah, thank you for calling me smart. Now I hate that shit. I'm like, don't call me smart. And I don't call my son smart on purpose. I say he's hardworking, right? And I'd rather be called
Capable.
hardworking than smart because capable, so many other words and adjectives than smart. Because I feel like when we call people smart, that puts this
Yes.
pressure on them. Because you always have to prove that you're this, right? When you're hardworking, all that
That's
means
it.
is you work hard, right? You can keep working hard. When you're smart, you learn to be like, I have to
Yeah.
prove that I'm smart. I have to keep doing this. I have to keep being a
Yeah.
smart person. And there's no room for error when you have to keep being a smart
Right.
person. That's just my tidbit on that. Let's talk about medication. I know a lot of people hate taking medication because you don't know how it's going to
Yes.
make you feel. When I first started Lamictal, I'm not going to lie to you, I wanted to stop after the
Yeah.
first 2 days. Like, I was just like, this is, I hate how my
Yeah.
body is feeling, but I had to push through. I'm like, I knew what I was like prior to
Mhm.
taking this medicine. And the psychiatrist said, hey, as a result of taking this medication, this is what you're
Yeah.
going to be like. So I
Right.
trusted her. I said, you know what? I am going to trust the process. So, but for a lot of people, they can't trust the process because they feel like they don't have time to adjust to the medicine because they have to be that
Yes.
superwoman. So, what happens when you start to take that medicine and you don't feel that proper adjustment? Or what happens when the medicine just isn't working like you want it to work?
Well, I don't have an answer to that because when I started my medication, I saw a difference in 2 days, 3 days. I think it was 3 days. And I remember talking to my psychiatrist, and I'm on Lexapro, by the way. I remember talking to my psychiatrist and I cried like a baby because I felt so, I just felt so defeated. I felt like, why can't I deal with my anxiety like a quote unquote normal person? Why can't, I've dealt with it this long, 28, 29 years. I've dealt with it this long. Why is it so different that I just am having so much difficulty dealing with things now? Like why? I felt horrible. And she told me, she said, look, we can try it. If you hate it, we'll never do it again. We'll try something else. We'll do something else. Okay. But if it works, and I very strongly believe that it will, this is going to change your life. And it did. I'm so glad that I listened, because day 3, they said it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get into your system. Day 3, I was like, oh my God, is this what a regular brain feels like? I was like, you're not serious. When no, you're laughing. I swear. I was like,
No, I say that because I say this. I always say, like, is this what a regular brain feels like?
I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, I've always been so long-winded, but I would be long-winded with my stories and they just wouldn't make sense because I would forget where I was supposed to be going. So that was gone. Okay. My memory was better. My thoughts were quiet. I was able to sleep better, sleep deeply. And I've never had a problem with sleeping. Okay. I could sleep till next year, but it was never really restful sleep. And then when I started, I was like, oh my God, like these dreams are kind of weird, but I'm waking up and I'm a little bit more well rested. I'm noticing that there are things that are different. And it took 3 days. Mind you, the pills sat in my drawer for about 2 weeks because I just was like, you can do it. You don't have to take this. Trying to talk myself out of it. Crazy. But literally just 3 days. Salted. And I was like, there's no way that this is my life. There's no way that these thoughts are quiet now. There's no way that I could have been on this entire time. Damn the stigmas. And I could have had a normal brain for a significant amount of time, quote unquote normal. And then also realizing there were so many people around me that were on medication as well. It's not really something that we talk about, but then it's like you get on it and it's like everybody is on meds. They're on something. And it's like, you just sitting around here like, yeah, man, like my Zoloft, my Lexapro, my whatever, my Wellbutrin, it's a thing now.
Yeah, I started off on Lexapro, but some of the side effects didn't work well with my body. So I ended up switching to a couple of different medications. Now I'm on Rexulti, which has worked wonders for me. And we both had a good laugh with the, is this what normal feels like? Because seriously, I always joke, and I'm glad someone else understands that. Is this what normal feels like? Because I never really understood, and no one understood like that line, because I'm like, is this what a normal brain feels like? I wake up, I'm not sad, right? I'm not sad. And if I do get sad, I know why, right? I can function. I feel like a normal part of society, quote unquote normal, right? And it feels so freaking good, right? So it's just, it's so good. It's so I can't. It is, oh my God, if like it is like, I'm glad you can relate. Like it feels so good.
And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I've had to go up, a couple of times on dosages, and even having to go up on dosages, right? I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have to go up on a dosage. Like, why was not working, or why is it, why do I feel like it? Because it's what you feel, right? It's like, why do I feel like it's not working as good as it did before? Well, maybe you have increased triggers, you have increased anxious, things that are happening, in your life. And it's even feeling the shame of having, quote unquote, shame of having to get higher dosages, right? Like, there's just so much shame in like starting it initially, and then being consistent with it. And then maybe you need something a little bit stronger. So you're going up on the dosage. And it's just like, why? Why do we have this? And obviously, I know why, right? The Black community has this horrible stigma on mental health in general, but definitely medication. And it's just like, sometimes we just can't get our heads out of our own asses to just even consider it. And that is, I think, the craziest part to me. It's like we won't even consider it as a people. Not to mention if like your family is West Indian or Caribbean or African, or it's a no-go. Like, it's a no-go. Mental health, period. So just seeing these things from different perspectives in different cultures it's been fascinating to me.
Sometimes Black spaces can be very
Oh my
homophobic,
God,
as we
yes.
know. And queer spaces can be very white-centered. I've seen some photos from Pride,
Yeah.
and they're just like, I'm like, dog, ain't there Black
Yeah.
queer people? I guess
Oh, they're
not
definitely
sometimes.
hard. The spaces
So
just aren't for us. And I actually wrote about that in my dissertation, and in we had like an area paper that we did, which was like in place of our comprehensive exam. So I talked about that and how Black queer people are nearly invisible, not just in the literature, but just in general, period. But we're there. We're out there. And you just wouldn't know it
yeah,
from the media. We know the media sensationalizes so many things. But what the media shows a lot of times is white people who are gay, not Black people who are gay. And if we see white people who are gay, it's uplifting. It's, oh, this is so great. This is so wonderful. But we see Black people who are gay, it's all these negative stigmas and just so many things that are like incorrect, right? You have no idea how many times I have heard, "You're gay? That's that white people shit." Like, what?
oh wow, that's a good, not a good point. Not a good point. Not a good point. If someone's listening to this direct message in this direct part only, that's
Right.
not what I mean. But how does that contribute to the depression?
It's like, what do you mean? That's quote unquote that white people shit. Like, it's not. People people literally will say, "Well, our ancestors weren't." Yes, they were. They
Oh,
were
they
just
were.
hidden, baby. They were just hidden. Um, Africa, cultures in Africa. Yes, they were. We have on record queer centered African cultures. Native Americans, yes, they were. Two-spirit people. Trans people are literally their own forms of deities in Native American culture. Like, there's so many things that we can get into. Oh, being gay is unnatural. There are so many different species of animals who engage in same-sex behavior. It's not. And even with the religion thing, right? I have heard Black people say, well, gay comes from the white man because the white man used to buck break the slaves in front of the male slaves in front of the other slaves, and blah, blah, blah. And we didn't have that. Yes, we did. That is not the origination of Black people being gay. It's not. But hearing those things constantly, number one, makes you feel like you're inferior. Number two, makes you feel like you have lost your ever-loving mind, because why would I be involved in something or have these feelings or participate in these behaviors or in these activities, whatever you want to call it, relationships, and I know the quote unquote history that's behind it. So it's shame that you feel. Because why am I attracted to something that was forced onto us, quote unquote, if we're talking about the butt breaking situation? Why am I attracted to something that has destroyed the Black community, quote unquote? I don't know how many times I've heard that. Homosexuality has destroyed the Black community. Not men having children with women they never intended to marry. several children and pushing the family into poverty. Not church people who are walking around here sleeping with the deaconess. Not the first lady, the deaconess. Not you got to go put some clothes on because your uncle's coming over. Not that. That's not destroying the Black community. Not the sagging pants, the and I mean that's not me. Black people say that, oh, sagging pants. But not the drugs, the gangs, not none of that. Just homosexuality. Okay. Depressed, shame, worthlessness. So many things that come from that. And it's like we already have so much to deal with being Black people in general, being a Black woman in general, being a Black man in general, being a Black gender nonconforming person. We have so many things that we have to deal with already. Black trans person. And we got to deal with that too. It's insane. Depressed.
So throughout that mist of depression and anxiety and everything that you have going against you, what brings you joy?
Community. And there are so many people who like to say, oh, well, they're only a small percentage of the population and blah, 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 blah. Maybe. We may be small, but we are mighty. And I can recall going out and being uncomfortable in a club, being damn near fondled on by men on my way to the bathroom, and getting into the women's bathroom and engaging with women who I found out were queer and feeling like it was the safest space on earth, wanting to stay in that space, wanting to exchange numbers and establish our own sense of community because I don't feel it out there. And I think that people tell us all the time, especially Black people, oh, y'all this and y'all are that and y'all do too much and blah, blah, blah. We have all these negative connotations and stigmas that are placed on us as Black queer people. But when you find your community, when you find your people, it makes life worth living. It makes things a little bit less difficult. It makes the world seem not like such an ugly place. And that's a beautiful thing. Because especially right now with everything that we're going through, all this anti-trans, anti-queer legislation, politicians, plus the economy, plus all of these things that we're dealing with, we're struggling with on a daily basis, it's like we need to find something, anything that we can pull joy from. And I truly believe that's in establishing community, whether it's with a partner, with supportive family, with chosen friends, with chosen family. Just having someone that understands what it is that you're going through on a daily basis, that can empathize. Because allies empathize. They might not understand, but they empathize. But just having a support system and however you create that, I think is what brings me joy personally. And definitely what I believe brings joy to a lot of queer people as well.
Definitely. What would you say to that Black boy or Black girl who might be listening, who's scared?
Oh, I think I would say, look at me. Not in a showboaty way, not in an arrogant way, but look at me and everything that I've been through and everything that I've accomplished to be where I am now. It is possible. This is why representation is so important, because there is no telling who I would be and where I would be if I had someone who looks like me that was in a position that I'm in now back then. If I knew them, if I had the opportunity to engage with them. So I would tell them that life sucks sometimes, but it gets better. And everyone has their own battles and their own obstacles that they have to overcome and that they face. But, I would just tell them, find your community, find whatever that looks like that brings you joy, and hold on to it tight, because that's what's going to carry you through the hard moments. And, there's, I think it's a Bible verse. It's weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And it might take a while, but it comes. It comes. And, just to, like I said, find community and just reach out to people that love you for who you are as a person, not for what you do, what you can do for them. But just love you. I think that's the most important thing.
That's dope. I think there's nothing more powerful on this planet and the universe than love. I think find people who love you, find people you can love, and that's built in when you find a community. So I love that. I'm going to use the word love again. Now I'm going to turn it over to you to ask me stuff.
So what is the stigma of Black men in the community that have specific mental illnesses? Like what does that look like?
Crazy, unpredictable are like the two that stick out to me the most, where let's talk about the unpredictableness, where they just look at us when they're just like, you don't know what they're going to do, right? So you don't want to be around them because 1 minute they'll be hot, then they'll be cold. You just don't know which version you're going to get. And it's just like, that's not true, right? Especially once they have a treatment plan, once they're established and understand themselves to know what they're going through. If they're in therapy, all these things, then they know what they're going through, and they really need a friend.
Right.
They don't need to be pushed away.
I think that's the most polarizing thing. It's trying to shed the stigma while also accepting that there are some aspects of that stigma that could potentially be true, but trying to focus on the positives so you can get the treatment that you need, so you can be that productive citizen in society. I feel like it's kind of like a scale. Like, it's like, yes, this could potentially be true, but this is also very true. Just trying to find that balance, I think, is something that I would imagine Black men specifically struggle with in dealing with mental illness and the stigmas that come from it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's hard to find that balance because for some reason, the Black community, everybody has to be the strong one, which is weird. It's just like, why does everybody have to be strong? Why can't we all just for a second be just soft and gentle?
Impossible.
Right? Impossible.
It's horrible.
And
it really is.
For a Black man to say, you know what, I'm vulnerable in this moment, takes a lot. And I'm very comfortable in my masculinity. That's why I'm such an advocate for everybody, because I know who I am. So I'm willing to be vulnerable in the spaces that I belong to. But for a lot of Black men, there are not a spaces where they can be vulnerable. I have the type of friend group where I can call them up and say, hey, I'm not doing well today. Like, not everyone has that friend group.
Wow. That's a beautiful thing, because like I said, support can be a game changer. I mean, I have my people that I could call up and say, hey, I'm really not having a good day. But I can't. I know that it's out there that people don't have that, but it's like, with everything that's going on in the world and just life in general, I just feel like that is a very scary existence, to not have anybody. And there's so many people out here that don't. And especially when you're dealing with queerness and Blackness and, so many other intersectional identities. I mean, that's why you see such high suicide rates in a lot of these different communities, because they just really feel like there is no one here to stay for. They feel like there's no one here that cares. And these things aren't really getting better. Our country is very reactive in so many ways. They're not proactive at all. And so nothing really is done about things here until it's really too late, until there are too many people who have, been lost and who have succumbed to these, these issues and these problems. And it really, really is devastating, because these things are absolutely preventable. But it's what people care about, I think, that has a huge impact on what changes and what doesn't, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What is going on with your research now?
So I'm trying to get it published. I am currently working on a book that's based off my research. I am trying to get that. It's in the hands of some academic publishers, and I'm just waiting on feedback. And that is scary, just waiting upon that. They said they got it, they're reviewing it. So just waiting to hear back something, a yay or a nay, so I can move on to the next one. I'm doing some national presentations on the research, so that's exciting.
Fingers crossed for acceptances and no revisions all the way across, because I already know how that goes. Academia is not for the weak.
It is not, because they be like, this sucks, or they accept it. Then they'd be like, it's always, I think they did that on
You're
purpose.
Like, if I'm reviewer number two, I'm ripping this to shreds. You're horrible. This is terrible. Reviewer number two. It's a stigma.
It's always reviewer number two. Always.
So hopefully we have no reviewer number twos, and we get wide acceptances and no revisions all the way across, because it's research that needs to be shared.
Yeah.
It's important.
Definitely. But thank you, Sydney. I greatly appreciate you being on the podcast today. We'll have to chat some more, because we didn't even get to half the stuff I wanted to get to today.
We'll definitely do this again. This was great. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for tending to the garden with me today. Seriously, just remember, stability isn't a straight line. It's a rhythm. Just because the music slows down for a second, it doesn't mean the song is over. Give yourself some radical grace this week. If this conversation brought a little bit of light into your space, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. Share this with someone who needs it, and come lock in with us on Instagram at Black and Diagnosed. I'm always looking to build connections, so if you want to jump on a guest spot, I have a collaboration in mind, hit my email at info@gerronscott.com. Let's build. Till next time, take care of yourselves.